Biden Today News, U.S. allocates another United States $12.3 billion in aid to Ukraine. White House, U.S. President Joe Biden sidestepped a government agency shutdown by signing a temporary spending package that includes $12.3 billion in aid to Ukraine. This was reported by the official White House portal, reports the Ukrainian news agency. According to the report, from fiscal year 2023, starting on October 1 until December 16, 2022, the law will provide federal agencies with funding to continue federal projects and activities and improve the situation in Ukraine. It also includes additional funds to address the bill passed the U.S. Senate on Thursday, September 29, and the U.S. House of Representatives on Friday, September 30. The bill includes an aid package for Ukraine in its fight against Russian forces. In particular, his $3 billion will be provided for military support, including training, weapons and logistical support. $1.5 billion to replenish American equipment provided to Ukraine or other supporting countries. $2.8 billion for continued military, intelligence and other defense assistance to Ukraine. $4.5 billion to support the activities of the Ukrainian government. $35 million to fund a response to a possible nuclear and radiological accident in Ukraine and to prevent theft of these materials. Ukraine received her €500 million subsidy from the EU, as previously reported by the Ukraine news agency. Biden has abused his powers. It's time to end the public health emergency. The Trump administration has said the 2020 public health emergency is an effective and real way to combat COVID-19. Successfully used the pandemic as a political response to the first declared by the Secretary of Health on January 31, 2020. The public health emergency has given the executive branch various powers in response to COVID-19. What began as necessary and determined political action under President Donald Trump has unfortunately devolved into an unprecedented and authoritarian abuse of power under the Biden administration. The Trump administration is using its public health emergency executive powers to lead the world in the fight against COVID-19, building unprecedented public-private partnerships to fund the development of protected workers. As with any catastrophic event, there was a time and place for such executive power. Compare this to today. More than 2.5 years later, COVID-19 has been in the epidemic stage for months, with high vaccination rates, fewer hospitalizations, and fewer deaths. Yet President Joe Biden has taken the public health emergency far beyond its initial planned course. Biden's reason for this isn't about science, it's about how to abuse power. The Biden administration has routinely armed FES to exceed their constitutional authority, from illegally extending the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention moratorium on forced evictions to unscientific mandatory masking requirements and vaccination mandates. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled against Biden on both the CDC's moratorium on evictions and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's vaccination order for large employers, and both executive orders are against Biden's Pandemic Emergency Response Agency. We have determined that it does not fall under the legal restrictions of Biden's COVID-19 vaccine order for federal employees, which he initially conceded may not be constitutional, remains unresolved as the Court of Appeals agreed to a retrial. 4 Americans are now dependent on Medicaid. Biden will drive the strongest economy in history, but create unprecedented government dependence. Medicaid is for individuals who deserve it. Handouts cannot be used as another tool for addiction. Years later, Biden continues to hijack these emergency designations to upend the radical domestic political agenda. He recently invoked a national emergency and used post-9/11 legislation as the legal basis for his unconstitutional gifting of student loans. The public health emergency is set to expire on his October 15, but Biden has historically been reluctant to cede authority during the pandemic, so he may extend federal authority. There is a nature. This is despite Biden recently telling 60 Minutes, in a shameless moment of brutal honesty, the pandemic is over. COVID is still a problem. We are still working hard on it. But the pandemic is over. Given that Biden's emergency powers were based on the spread of the pandemic, CNN said the White House downplayed these comments, and Biden's comments did not constitute a policy change. Biden's Freudian gaffe follows drive. Anthony Fauci told PBS NewsHour in April 2022 that the U.S. is out of the pandemic phase. He's over a year out of the Biden administration, and the public health emergency is still going on for the wrong reasons. What was once a genuine, necessary and effective policy instrument to combat the COVID-19 pandemic has become a disingenuous and deceitful political ploy, allowing Biden to go beyond legal authority to enact legislation from the executive branch. Made possible. COVID-19 remains epidemic, but it is completely wrong for governments to use the healthcare situation for political gain. Biden must lift public health emergency immediately. Gone are the days when our military heroes would serve, children would go to school in masks, and families and businesses would be freed from the ongoing state of pandemic-era Biden rule.